This presentation will cover school-wide positive behavior support by Brittany, Lorraine, Molly, and Terry. Halls Elementary School is located in an urban area. There are 500 students enrolled in pre-K through third grade. Students have demonstrated academic and behavioral challenges. 75% of students have received ODRs, and many students are multiple offenders. The pre-K and kindergarten students run up and down the hallways, sometimes hide, and have run out of the buildings. Some teachers have developed hallway rules, while others have not. Many teachers yell at students about their behavior. The school only has 2 instructional assistants to cover 4 hallways. They have 6 special education teachers and 5 specials teachers. The school does not have enough money to hire additional staff. So while the students are demonstrating both academic and behavioral challenges, we're going to focus on their behavioral difficulties by implementing school-wide positive behavior support. What is school-wide positive behavior support? It is an approach that helps us prevent and reduce undesirable problem behaviors. So their behaviors such as running in the hallways and hiding and whatnot. And then it'll help us promote positive pro-social behaviors. In recent years, SWPBS has been used as an alternative approach instead of punitive forms of discipline that are often used in schools. A little bit about the research that supports SWPBS. When schools implement this, they typically see decreases in inappropriate behaviors, and that's typically measured in suspensions, expulsions, ODRs, things like that. Further, it's imperative that we create consistent implementation procedures and dedicate attention to practices that need additional support. SWPBS can be used in 3 tiers for intervention. Primary, which would be school-wide, secondary, which is targeted at a particular group of students, and tertiary, which is individualized and often uses a functional behavior assessment. Training that we're going to be using will be providing an overview of SWPBS. So that'll basically tell us more in-depth details about the research, its effectiveness, the process, and how it goes. We are going to provide materials for teachers for their training and for further professional development. We have a video that goes over SWPBS as well as sample lesson plans and visuals for them to learn how to implement behavior instruction. And then furthermore, we have an article for parents to help them become more involved, as their involvement will also help with SWPBS. Further training materials, we have procedures that we're going to use for implementing SWPBS. We're going to use a token system because a token system helps us to acknowledge correct behaviors that the students are displaying, because that is what we'd like to see. We have specific data collection. That way we can measure the decrease in ODRs and expulsions and suspensions that we see, and just to further see how we're progressing as a school and to see if we reach our goals. And then the final material that we'll have are posters. So each teacher will have a poster in their classroom and other visuals. That way students can see what these behaviors are expected to look like, and so that they have a constant reminder.
Next piece we're going to talk about are the steps involved to implement an SWPBS. The first step is you're going to want to examine your various data sources to determine areas of priority for behavior change. These include, but are not limited to, rates of office discipline, referral, suspension, expulsions, standardized and unstandardized assessment scores, special education referrals, and other things of that nature. Based on this data, you're going to use that to drive your desired outcomes that are going to be observable, measurable, specific, and these annual outcomes will be based on the gathered data that you have. Continuing on, the next step is to select a team that will spearhead the implementation process. In the article cited below, the authors recommend selecting a team that has social influence over the students in the school. Your next step is you're going to want to determine which data collection system you're going to use. Thirdly, on this slide, the team will attend trainings for SWPBS, and then these staff are going to be the ones responsible for sending all this information into the other staff members in the building. Training schedules are provided on the PBIS website. This team, along with collaboration of the staff, will select 3 to 5 expectations for students. Now, each of these expectations will be further defined by listing target behaviors for each one of those expectations. These target behaviors will be developed across school settings, such as hallways, cafeteria, gymnasiums, or any other places the students can be found within the school. This SWPBS committee will also design lesson plans and instructional activities to explicitly teach these target behaviors. The SWPBS team will determine systematic methods for increasing supervision within the school. This will not only create more structure, but also increase the likelihood of observing students engaging in the positive behaviors, more opportunities for them to essentially to catch them being good, and more opportunities for them to get some positive reinforcement. Team members determine means for opportunities for positive reinforcement of target behaviors. So whether that be passing out green tickets, or just providing them with some social praise, nice job, or something along the lines of which we're going to talk to in a minute, is using a classroom dojo system. Next, the same way that students are acknowledged for engaging in target behaviors, Simonson, Sugai recommend also acknowledging staff members that are doing an exemplary job implementing SWPBS efforts throughout the school. Schedule and hold regular SWPBS meetings to review data is also a critical step. This data should be analyzed to recognize successes, as well as areas for improvement. What's going well, what's not going well, and to develop areas of change if need be. It's also important that this data can also give us reasons to celebrate our successes, share these with the students, families, and the community at large.
The data collection tool that we're using for our intervention is the Schoolwide evaluation tool. To begin with, for this, the implementation guide lays out the whole plan for using your intervention. Prior behavioral data is collected to survey what strategies have already been in place and to gather your baseline data for behavioral problems. Data collection protocol for the set states that it should be conducted prior to the implementation of the intervention, 6 to 12 weeks after implementation, and then annually from then on. The interview process always begins with the administrator. This is where you gain that information about prior interventions as well as your baseline data. The interview and observation form shown here is the only one needed for recording the interview responses as well as your observation notes throughout the school. The information that's gathered for the set consists of the questions covering the areas of behavioral expectations, teaching behavior expectations, reward systems, system for handling violations, database decision-making, administrative support, and district-level support. After the interviews and the observations are completed, the answers are assigned a value of 0, 1, or 2. The set manual that's found online at pbis.org has detailed instructions as well as the scoring manual. All the additional materials that are collected for the assessment, such as disciplinary handbooks and the current social skills practices, behavioral training materials, and the office disciplinary records are all gathered in the beginning of this process as well.
Next, we're going to talk about some ways to be able to model the positive behaviors for in the hallway. So this is a poster that each staff member will be given during the training by the SWPBS committee. Each teacher will be responsible for going over this poster with their class. Teachers will need to teach their students each of the ways to correctly walk in the hallways. So walking in a straight line, the teacher will have to go through and actually teach the students how to walk in a straight line through the hallways. Next is our class dojo that we will be using to reward students for positive behavior, but yet give them consequences through losing points. So, and also parents will be able to access this to keep them up to date with how their child is doing in school. So if if teacher sees a student doing something positively in the hallway, then they can go and give them a point for that. But if they're doing something that is negative, then the teacher can go in and take points away for that student. This here is the data sheet that Class Dojo provides to you. You can print out one for each student, and you can customize the date range for whatever you need it to be. And these will help determine if the student is able to earn the reward or the prize that they are working towards. So currently, current practices at Hall Elementary for correcting behavior in hallways has been ineffective. Such measures have included punitive-based consequences and teacher efforts to create rules for the individual classes. Despite staff efforts, student behavior has shown no improvement. Staff members have no consistency in expectations and no framework for providing positive reinforcement contingencies. SWPBIS is an approach that will promote implementation consistency and fidelity amongst Hall Elementary staff members. SWPBIS utilizes empirically evidenced principles for behavior changes and applied behavior analysis. This includes, but is not limited to, positive reinforcement and data collection.
As part of the school-wide implementation plan, Halls Elementary School will select a team that will undergo the training for the positive behavior intervention support. This action team will be responsible for disseminating the information to the rest of the school staff through a series of professional development days. The 3 behavioral expectations that have been developed by the team are that students will behave safely, students will behave respectfully, and students will also be well-mannered. Addressing the first rule of students behaving safely, examples of this will be students walking in a single file line on the right side of the hallway, being forward-facing, using their walking feet, no running, remaining in line while walking, and following the person in front of you. Students are also to remain in the building unless given permission from staff. Non-examples of behaving safely are running, walking or running in the middle of the hallway, or walking, running backwards, and exiting the building without permission. Students will behave respectfully by using quiet voices, keeping hands and feet to themselves, hands to their sides or behind their back, and when someone begins a conversation with you, you can simply smile and give them the quiet sign as a reminder of not talking in the hallways. Non-examples include pushing, hitting, talking loudly in the hallway, touching the property of others, touching the walls, or raising your voice to tattle on your fellow classmates. And the third rule for students being well-mannered, examples of this would be holding the doors for others, silent waves to friends and teachers, following teacher instructions the first time, and remaining in their designated spot in line. Non-examples of this are ignoring teacher instructions, getting out of line or cutting in front of other people in line, stepping on the backs of others' shoes, and putting their hands on other students during transitions.
School-wide implementation plan continued. Teachers will provide explicit instruction to students based on these behavioral expectations that were just listed in previous slides. These include specific examples and non-examples of the target behaviors, just as we mentioned before. Hall Elementary staff will systematically extend their supervision in hallways during transition, increasing those students' opportunities for positive reinforcement and for their behavior to be recognized. Hall Elementary staff will supervise transitions while holding clipboards. When he or she notices a student engaging in one of those listed target behaviors, the student will be acknowledged with specific praise, such as, "I like the way you're walking with your hands by your sides. You're being safe." So in addition to that verbal praise, the student's name will be written down. Following those transitions, each staff member will be able to go inside their classrooms, access any teacher's roster for Classroom Dojo, and award that student points. All of these pre-implementation tasks that were listed, such as coming up with the behavior expectations, discussing lesson plans, and instructional activities for teaching behaviors, will be done in a series of professional developments. The professional developments will go over in about two days. So the first day is really your introductory day, where SWPBS is introduced, as well as the research behind it, behavioral expectations, and some beginning instruction on lesson plans for teaching those behaviors. There also is going to be a follow-up professional development day where teachers will share out lessons, visuals, or any learning activities to teach behavioral expectations. In addition, other objectives for that follow-up session are data collection and positive reinforcement contingencies.
Just some final tips here. Every staff member has to implement the program with fidelity for the best behavioral outcomes. Behaviors may get worse before they get better, but remain consistent. If you see a student exhibiting the defined behaviors, it is essential to provide contingent, specific, and immediate praise for the behavior. Acknowledging the positive behavior of students not only increases the likelihood that the behavior will occur for that student, it will also serve as motivation for other students as well.